Have you ever wondered what is the difference between a Fide Master and an amateur player? In this video, we will try to understand it. I gave to different players of different strength a tactical position, 10 minutes maximum, and I asked them to record the thought process on live. So, this is what this video is about. The players that we are taking in consideration are an amateur player that never played any tournament and that is not playing so much chess, then a third category player, and if you don't know what is a third category player, because maybe in your country it doesn't exist, this name, is a player between 1400 and 1600 FIDE rating. Then second category, so 1600, 1800, first category 1800 2000, then a player in the range 2000 2200, and in the end to a FIDE Master. So let's start. So here is white to move, and white moved on g4, and the tactic start from here. So if you want, you can pause the video, do some consideration, collect your thoughts, and maybe put also a timer, 10 minutes, and then if you want, you can compare your thoughts to the ones of these players. I think it is a nice exercise, as you please. So the first player is the amateur player, and the first thing that he took in consideration, the queen is under attack, and that there is a nice diagonal toward the white king. So the first thing he checked was bishop, and if the king move, there is knight f3, but rook takes f3, bishop takes, and queen knight takes h6 with check, so there was nothing. He checked briefly queen takes h4, but again after g takes h4 there is nothing. So he went for, in the end, he opted for bishop takes, queen takes, and here he went for f3. And he thought about f3 because now if the queen moves, there is queen c6 with a nice diagonal and nice discovering attack toward the king. The thing that he missed is that there is a Zwischenzug, there is an intermediate move, there is knight takes h6. But in the end, he thought that if the queen moves, is a nice position after queen c6, and in fact he is right. He's not the best one, but a lot of tricky stuff. So let's go to the third category player. The third category player noticed at first that the queen is under attack, so he has to do forcing moves, and he opted for bishop takes. He checked that after king takes f3, and the queen is under attack with f3, that is check. So king take is not possible. The queen has to take, and here he checked something. He checked queen takes h4, g takes f3, but after rook takes f3 there was nothing. So he checked for other variations. He checked if the queen can move somewhere to create problems, but he wasn't so convinced about hanging square. So in the end he opted for bishop takes g2, queen takes, and queen e6 with an attack to the knight and to the other knight to restore the material balanced. And in the end, he checked also f3, but he thought that after bishop h3, there is f2, but the white can take the knight. Thing that is not possible because after f2 is check. But anyway, he wasn't so convinced neither about this variation, so in the end he opted simply for queen e6. Now let's go to the second category. The first thing that this player noticed was that there were two pieces under attack, so he has to do forcing moves, and he checked bishop takes and king takes. So he thought that after queen c6, the king has to move somewhere. So because if king g1 or king f2, if king g1, there is a fork on f3 with the knight, and if king f2, just f takes g3, that is check. So after bishop takes, king takes, queen c6, there is king h3, h5 to attack the knight, because our knight is attack, is threatened. C takes d4, h takes g4, king takes g4, queen e6, and after king f3, there is f takes g3, and he thought that black is slightly better, so he went back and he checked for other stuff. He checked bishop takes g2 and queen takes g2. So he had to move the queen, but the knight is hanging. So he has to move the queen somewhere to threaten the other knight. And after 5 minutes, he reduced the candidate moves to bishop takes g2 and queen h5. In the end, he went for bishop takes, takes, and queen h5 to try to restore the material balance. Let's pause for a moment. From what I understood from the amateur player, the third category, and the second category, there is a problem in the calculus. The calculus is not optimized because sometimes some move is missing, so some threaten like knight h6 check, intermediate move, but also after bishop takes g2, there is no need to check king takes g2. Well, you can check it because it's fine, but is the most improbable move. So for that is not optimized. It's better if the queen takes. King takes is unnecessary dangerous. So the thing that I noticed about this three first player is just an optimization for the calculus. Let's check now the first category and see if it goes differently. The first category player, the first move that he took in consideration is bishop takes g2. He didn't think so much about queen takes because he thought that it was unnecessarily dangerous. So he considered queen takes g2, and he checked that after queen c6, queen takes c6, knight takes c6, the position is not so good for black, so he checked other stuff, but there was also not queen takes c6, but the intermediate move c takes d4. So here he started to calculate also queen takes h4, g takes, bishop takes, and after queen takes, he thought that the g file was open, but it was a bit unrealistic that this variation could work. So he went back to the calculation and he started to calculate bishop takes, queen takes, and queen h5. He wasn't so convinced about this variation, but he didn't find anything better. So he said that in a game, probably with this time, he would have gone for this variation. Now, let's check the players above 2000, what they thought and what they would have played in this position. The first thing he noticed is that the knight and the queen are both threatened, and he can't save both. So there need to be something else. So he checked bishop takes, and after king takes, queen c6, there is a king queen rook e4, sorry, and he can save the knight. But if queen takes g2 instead that king takes g2, there is nothing so special about this position. So he checked also other stuff instead that bishop takes. And he went for a variation like queen h5 because he thought that if the knight moves, there is a knight f3 that is really strong, and the bishop pair is lost. And the position is good. And instead, if knight takes e5, there is bishop takes e5, and after c takes d4, there is bishop takes d4, and this bishop, this dark square bishop, is really strong. But there was nothing special even about this move, a lot of possible replies for white. So and there was also h3, or instead that knight f2 just trade the knights. So he wasn't so convinced, and he checked for some more forcing variation. So he went to f3. And the first thing about f3 is that he thought that if the queen takes, there is this check, and after the king moves, there is a take, and if the rook moves after knight e2, is the king can escape on f2, but he found this variation that first a knight check, now the rook is forced to take, and this is a checkmate. So he thought that f3 can be a possible choice, and he calculate knight takes, and after bishop takes, the queen can't retake, because then it follows the same variation. So now the queen is threatened, and has to move on f2, but after queen f2 there is a check, the king has to move, and the queen eventually will fall, and black is better, black wins material. So he saw this variation, and he convinced even more about f3, but he didn't stop here and check other possible replies. So he checked after bishop takes h6, the queen can't move, so maybe the bishop can block, but he found pawn takes, and after king g1, there is rook takes f1, rook takes f1, g takes f1, king takes, and the rook goes on f8, so it's check, and if the king goes on e1 or g1, there are the only two possible squares, the knight can land on f3, delivering a fork. So he convinced about this move. Then the continuation could go on with bishop f4, but in the end, after 5 minutes, he found f3, he calculated for other 5 minutes, and he found the right sequence. So let's check the difference with the Fide Master. The Fide Master took in consideration as the first move bishop takes, but after queen takes, there was nothing so special about this position, and he went for other stuff. So after only 30 seconds, he started to calculate f3, that is the more forcing move. So here there is knight takes, bishop takes, and here if queen takes, there is the mate that follows as before. So he checked this variation, and so after this move, he checked if after bishop takes h6, the problem, he thought like this. The problem with this variation is that the knight will land on e2, so maybe the queen can move somewhere to cover the e2 square, and he thought about queen d1, but after 1 minute of calculation, he found that after this sequence of moves, there is pawn takes and bishop e3, and this is a mate in a couple moves. He didn't find the mate, but he stopped because black is up a lot of material, and in his head, this position was super winning for black, and in fact is like that. And after that, he checked other few stuff, like maybe on this position the bishop will take, because if the queen takes, then we follow with the same variation. So maybe bishop takes, but he found bishop takes, and the queen is hanging after that. So he stopped here in this continuation, and he checked the last thing he checked was bishop takes f3 in this moment. But after bishop takes, bishop takes, bishop take e1, he didn't find anything, because there was a bishop d5 that was threatening the f7 rook. So here he thought about queen takes, rook takes, sorry, and after that just knight takes c6, and black is up a lot of material and most likely will win this game. And he stopped here. After 10 minutes, he found all the best replies. He didn't find bishop g5, and the actual game went like that with bishop g5, the continuation that the 2000 player found and analyzed. But anyway, with 10 minutes, you can't find all the possible replies, but what he found was good, and even with bishop g5 was still winning the continuation, and as we see before. So let's do some summary. So from what I understood, the lower rated players, the amateur and the third and first category, thought more about the material instead that the position itself. And this is not so wrong, but well, seeing that this was a tactic, after the difference is that for all the players, and this is a good thing for all the players, the ending position was not so good. So they thought that it was not, they understood that they didn't find the best continuation for black, but they couldn't find something else, and they settled for a less better position. But this is human. I mean, with 10 minutes, then there is also the fact that I asked them to record the thought process in live. So maybe they spend it also time to record and to say the continuation. And maybe I should have give them more time to think, because the minutes talking and recording is not so much. But it is what it is. And yeah, so the lower rated players thought more about the material, and once they didn't find anything, they settle for a bad position. And they knew it, but they did it anyway, and it's fine. Instead, and another thing about the lower rated player is that they thought first about the material, and second, they didn't do an Optimus calculus. They insisted in some variation, even if they already found a bad continuation for black. They check other stuff, and I have to say is a thing that happened also to me in some tournaments. So it's a human thing. But instead, what I like the most about the 2000 player and the Fide Master especially, let's talk first about the 2000 player. The 2000 player had a calculus that was really linear. He found a bad continuation for black, so he stopped at that point, and he looked for something else. And in the end, after just 5 minutes, he thought about the right sequence. And for the Fide Master instead, one thing that I think is the most interesting one about this whole experiment, let's call it like that, is that he spent really 30 seconds, 30 maximum 40 seconds to convince himself that f3 was the right choice, and then he spent all the other 9 minutes to check all the right continuation after f3, all the possible replies from white side, and in the end he found the right sequence. And I think that the most interesting thing that I'm also asking myself is how can you disregard some variation and focus on other variation. I think that when you start to reach high rating, you start to see chess in a different way. For sure, the material is important, but in this type of position, White was really forced in doing the things with f3, not with the other stuff. There was a lot of freedom. With f3, the situation was not so easy for White. And I think that the Fide Master understood this stuff, that the loss of the queen is not so important because he thought more about the available square and what White can actually do after. White is up a queen, but has to deal with all the other problems. So instead, the material he focused more about the control of the right square, and for sure, knowing with a blink of an eye, knowing that there is some mate pattern can really help in this stuff. But yeah, only that. I think that after 30 seconds, he saw that bishop takes was not available, was leading to nothing special. He saw that you can't save the queen and the knight at the same moment, so there must be something else. And he checked for the move that was going in all the white position, and f3 was like a cannon inside white position. Was the move that if it would have worked, would have caused more damage to white position. So I think that maybe subconsciously he thought that that was the move, and he went for that. So nothing more to say. Uh, Really nice experiment, I think, really helpful also to me to understand the thought process of different players, and there is always room for improvement. So nothing else. I hope you like the video, and let me know what you think in the comments, and see you in the next video.